to go. But how is the president faring in the swing states that could decide the election?
Trump.
Why?
Because he makes the right decisions.
Do we have any reason to vote for Trump? I mean, he's a convicted felon.
I don't love either of them.
And meet Baby Dog, the English bulldog stealing the show in Milwaukee. Good evening, hello, and welcome to a special edition of The World from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. I'm Yalda Hakim, and what a few days it's been, full of political theatre, pageantry, and drama. Overnight, Donald Trump's rivals, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, took to the stage and endorsed their leader, proving that the party is now the Republican Party of Donald Trump. One of the stars of this convention, 39-year-old vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance, has just spoken in the past half an hour and reminded us why Donald Trump chose him. Just have a listen.
An assassin tried to take down the president of the United States. I was mad about it. Was he mad and angry? He called for national unity. He called for calm. He showed leadership, my friends, that the media keeps on saying they want somebody to tone down the temperature. Well, Donald Trump got shot and he toned down the temperature. That's what a real leader does. It is time to get rid of the corrupt Biden-Harris regime that has broken this country, that has ruined its reputation in the world, and most importantly, has made a basic middle-class life less affordable for our citizens. Let's get rid of him, and let's bring Donald Trump back to the White House.
That was J.D. Vance speaking a little earlier, and you're looking at these images of him at that event. We're also expecting him, as I said, to be the headline act here today, the 39-year-old vice presidential nominee, the third youngest vice presidential nominee. And if he does become the vice president in November, he will be, as I said, the third youngest in American history. We also saw former President Donald Trump come up to the stage a little earlier, just in the last few minutes, just here behind me. He took to the platform, he walked around on the stage, he tested the mics, and this is where we are expecting to see him tomorrow night, where we'll also see those blue balloons, the blue and white balloons, come from the ceiling. That hasn't happened yet. That is the big moment tomorrow. But Donald Trump taking to the stage a little earlier. He's been here all week, which really is a break from tradition. Usually these leaders come and show up in the last few days, but he's been here from day one, made his presence known here at the convention. The convention fills up late in the afternoon and goes through the evening. And as I said, we've also been hearing from Donald Trump's rivals, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, who are taking on Donald Trump just in the last few months, vying for the presidential nominee, to be the Republican presidential nominee. Of course, they've now knelt to Donald Trump. They have fully endorsed him. They were here. Perhaps at moments it felt like through gritted teeth. They spoke more about the alternate, Joe Biden being the alternate, and what that would look like, rather than being full of praise for Donald Trump. Let's just have a listen.
God bless Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period. I'm here tonight because we have a country to save. And a unified Republican Party is essential for saving her.
Donald Trump has been demonized. He's been sued. He's been prosecuted, and he nearly lost his life. We cannot let him down, and we cannot let America down.
And we will not be alone in this fight. For leading us in this fight will be a man who, although wounded and facing danger, he stood up and raised his fist and reminded us that our people and our country are always worth fighting for.
Our family has faced our fair share of death threats,
mysterious powders sent to our homes, tasteless and violent comments directed towards us on social media, but none of that prepares you as a daughter-in-law to watch in real time someone try to kill a person you love. If Donald Trump has shown us anything, it's that when it feels impossible to keep going, those are the times we must keep going.
Some of the voices last night, family, rivals and allies of Donald Trump, who are now all supporting and endorsing him on the stage just behind me. And you can probably see some of the rehearsals taking place at the moment. The auditorium here at present is quite empty, but in the next hour or so, we are expecting it to get quite full. And I've been speaking to some of the delegates. The mood here is one of defiance. They're also trying to sell a message of unity. But what we saw was jubilation. And I've been getting a sense of that. Just have a look. Here from all over the country in what is one of the most important weeks in the Republican Party's calendar. There's one clear message here, and that is of defiance and a party that wants to appear united. They want to make it clear that they need Donald Trump back in the White House in November, and that they won't tolerate another 4 years of Joe Biden. Trump! 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 So tell me, what brings you here? Why have you decided to come and support Donald Trump?
Oh, well, because I started early on in supporting him because he's going to prevent World War III.
What makes you say that? What sort of...
He's a master negotiator. He is the only one who hasn't in modern history put us through a war. And the guy knows how to deal with thugs and dictators and anyone who has a problem with the United States. And that's the only guy I can think can do it. He knows how to handle children. And that's what the leaders of the European world and throughout, and we know who they are, Macron, they're children. And whoever that guy got elected in the United Kingdom.
This idea that the MAGA Republican Party is racist or xenophobic, how do you respond to that?
Well, I look at people like myself, for instance. You know, it's obvious that I'm a black man, and here I am as a leader of the Republican Party and a leader in the state of Florida. And you look at people like Congressman Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds got on this stage last night at the RNC and got one of the most electrifying, warmest welcomes that there's been. You look at Congressman Wesley Hunt and what he done whenever he was on stage, and so many more, like Amber Rose. There's a shift from what used to be to what is now, and you can see that there's a migration of blacks moving from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party.
If Donald Trump is re-elected in the next 4 years, what do you think that will look like?
We're going to have an incredible America. Look, we've undone America in the last 3.5 years under the Joe Biden administration. Today, they wanted us to celebrate his funeral, but instead we're going to nominate Donald Trump onto the ballot come November.
Do you expect him to win in November?
I expect President Trump to win in November.
And if he doesn't?
God help America.
Some of the voices here at the RNC. Well, let's bring in our Mark Scott, who has been speaking to lots more people outside and inside the convention. And Mark, I mean, if anyone knows how to put on the pageantry, it really is the theatre that is American politics.
Yeah, full disclosure, I've never been to one of these before, and I've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, I've been to the National Party Congress in Beijing, the Communist Party Congress, which is a spectacle in itself. Party conferences in the UK, the French political system. This is on a whole different level. It really is. And you get such such insights as well. We just saw Donald Trump on stage there, and it was a moment that normally we wouldn't get to see because he was being walked through what he's going to be doing tomorrow. But because of the geography of the place, we can't be moved. We can see exactly what's going on. You can capture other moments as well. We saw Rupert Murdoch in a hotel lobby earlier on today, being and then. Tucker Carlson walked past him. These two men, they loathe each other now. Rupert Murdoch fired Tucker Carlson. There they were right next to each other. Matt Gaetz, a congressman who is a firebrand all on his own, he was giving the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, shouting at him while Kevin McCarthy was doing a live interview. Extraordinary little moments. But yeah, it is. In one sense, it's an extraordinary celebration of democracy. The problem is that the people here are the same people who, when it didn't go so well for them last time, claimed it was all stolen when it wasn't. So it's kind of it's a weird feeling, but it's a remarkable place.
Yeah, and as we've been saying, so much drama. All eyes also on the other star of the show, other than Donald Trump, J.D. Vance. Some of the remarks he's been making. I mean, we're often used to sort of vice presidents being sidelined, but he has been announced. He's 39 years old, and he has some pretty strong views on certain things, including Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Trump needs him. Trump thinks he needs him. Trump thinks that J.D. Vance, his story, one of poverty, written in a book, turned into a Netflix series. He's a very different person from Donald Trump. He's not the millionaire, billionaire from New York. He has come from a very poor upbringing, and his journey, I think, defines him, utterly defines him. And I think Donald Trump hopes that he will pull people in that may not be big fans of Donald Trump. The question, though, is what it means for foreign policy, and I think that's what we're focusing on now. I mean, on Ukraine, it is very clear that he is of the view that there needs to be a settlement very soon, and that it would. I mean, he said as much. It will include giving land to Russia. He said, no one can explain to me how this ends without some sort of territorial concession relative to the 1991 boundaries. In a sense, I do think, Yalda, he is speaking what a lot of other people believe is ultimately going to happen, is that there will be a settlement in Ukraine, that Ukraine will have to give land over to the Russians. But he's articulating it in a way that I think will really worry many Western leaders, and I think they'll be freaking out in Kyiv.
Let's bring in Iva Bennett, our Moscow correspondent, to get the view there from Russia, especially on the question of Ukraine. I mean, Iva, Mark and I have been discussing J.D. Vance, his views on Ukraine. It's certainly something that we've heard a lot from certain members of the Republican Party. Just tell us how it's being received there.
Yeah, you would have thought that the prospect of a Trump-Vance White House would have the Kremlin jumping for joy. All this talk of curbing aid to Ukraine, ending the war in 24 hours, according to Donald Trump. But apparently not. The official reaction today from Moscow has been a lot more muted than you might expect. We heard from Vladimir Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, who actually said something quite negative. He said nothing good was done for Russia when Trump was in the White House before. On the contrary, he added more and more restrictions were imposed, sanctions. So not an endorsement by any means. And you might remember it wasn't that long ago that Vladimir Putin actually said he would prefer Biden to win than Trump. But as we know, the Kremlin doesn't always say what it means. And I think there are two reasons why it's adopted this more cautious approach on this issue today. One is, I think, that it always likes to say that it doesn't meddle in the internal affairs of others. Endorsing candidates in elections would count as that, and it's a criticism Moscow often levels at the West. So it's refusing to be drawn on this issue now. The second reason, though, is the unpredictable element of a Trump administration. I think Russia knows that whatever Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have said in the past, if they do win, it's no guarantee that they'll follow through on those actions, particularly regarding Ukraine and ending the war.
Iva, thank you so much for all of your analysis there. Let's come back to Mark, who is here with me. So that's Ukraine. If we look at another foreign policy mess, frankly, it's the situation in Gaza, and many people are looking deeply into what J.D. Vance has said on Gaza, what Donald Trump thinks. If we look at the current situation, it isn't short of catastrophic, frankly. So curious to know what J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have been saying.
I think it's quite straightforward. It is wholesale support for Israel in a way that we have not seen, in a way that the Biden administration has struggled on. You know, they've tried to ride two horses on that crisis. I think with J.D. Vance, it's clear from what he says that he will deepen support for Israel. They were critical of what they see as Biden's support for Hamas, as they've been putting it last night here. And so I think the prospects of a two-state solution and all that sort of stuff under a Trump-Vance ticket, I think very difficult indeed. Very much full throttle support for Israel.
Mark, let's look at domestic policy as well. And one of the issues that always is an issue during American presidential elections is abortion. It's always one of the things that's top of the agenda. And it is an issue here in Milwaukee as well. Where does J.D. Vance sit on that?
This is one where I think Vance is potentially a problematic appointment for Donald Trump, because Vance is perhaps even more hardline on abortion than Donald Trump is. I mean, he has been clear in the past that he would like to see a national abortion ban. Trump has been more equivocal, recognizing that he needs to draw in female voters who might be very concerned about choice. Vance is even further over. So I think there, interestingly, we could see Trump struggling with many voters who believe in the right to choose, not seeing their choice and their beliefs represented one bit in J.D. Vance. So an interesting one there. We've seen over the past few months how Donald Trump has tried to nuance his views on abortion. Well, with Vance, we're going to see it shift very much into a more of a national abortion ban type stance.
One of the things we keep hearing over the last few days is build that wall. And certainly on immigration, J.D. Vance is right there with Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about the noise. They're just they're practicing for tonight. But yeah, I mean, look, on immigration, it's the number 2 issue of the election. Number 1 is the economy. Number 2 is immigration. And the wall is only half built. Remember that wall down on the southern border? Trump tried to build it. He didn't manage to build a great deal of it. J.D. Vance favors a merit-based system of immigration. He says that the U.S. should conduct large-scale deportations. He says that the construction should be finished. What's interesting, though, mass deportations. What does that look like? How are they going to conduct mass deportations? Who's going to do it? And then what does it mean for all those workers who are here illegally, but who are actually doing, as we see in the UK and Europe, doing work that many Americans don't want to do? I was looking at some interesting statistics. 70% of laborers on Wisconsin farms, we're in Wisconsin right now, are illegal workers. So you may find all those farmers thinking that Trump's great, but then if he deports all the workers that are keeping their farms going, what then?
Yeah. As you say, big questions. We'll have to see how it all pans out over the next couple of months. Mark, as always, thank you so much. Well, you can hear some of those rehearsals taking place, and they will continue to do so over the next hour or so as we wait for the official program to begin. But let's speak more a little bit about the star of the show tonight, J.D. Vance. Now, before entering politics, J.D. Vance made much of his wealth in venture capital. Let's speak now to someone who worked very closely with him and knows J.D. Vance from Silicon Valley. That's Crystal McKellar. Crystal, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. You know J.D. Vance, you've worked closely with him from a previous life. Just tell us a little bit more about him, his character, because, you know, a lot of people talk about the book he wrote, his family now. He is all over the headlines. There are so many pieces that are being written about him. But what can you tell us?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I think one of the really important things to remember about JD is that even though he's being portrayed as the Silicon Valley candidate, and yes, he had a great career in Silicon Valley and he funded some great companies, fundamentally, I think the reason he's such a great choice is because he speaks to everyday Americans. He was incredibly raw and vulnerable in his book. He was incredibly willing to give up his own privacy to shine a light on a problem that's facing our nation's core. We have an entire generation of working class people who've been left behind by progress. And he speaks to that experience. And he experienced it firsthand, the hollowing out of industry, the opioid epidemic, And he really speaks to that, to everyday Americans, who don't want government handouts. That's not the American dream. The American dream is self-respect. It's healthy kids. It's opportunity. It's the opportunity to get great jobs and provide for one's family. And that's really what he brings to the table.
Crystal, many people are asking questions about how genuine his support for Donald Trump is, given he's done such a massive 180-degree turn. I mean, he described him as America's Hitler, an idiot, made all sorts of remarks. And now we're seeing him as Donald Trump's top ally.
One thing I definitely experienced firsthand is JD loves to learn. He is curious and he is willing to have his mind be changed. I think he's been pretty open about the fact that he was influenced by biased media portrayals of President Trump. And he allowed that influence to color his own remarks and his own views. He's the best person to speak with about his personal change. But one thing I definitely noticed, and I experienced firsthand when we would meet with companies, we would meet with founders, we'd learn about new industries together, is he's got an insatiable desire for knowledge. And part of having a desire for knowledge is the willingness to change one's mind when one gets new information. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I think that there are a lot of people who have had a similar experience, who listened to a lot of the hysterical portrayals of President Trump in 2016 and 2020, and who were really impacted by that, and who are today taking a second look. We're certainly seeing it in Silicon Valley and saying, gosh, there's a lot that was said back then that wasn't true objectively. Let's revisit some of the things that we thought were true.
And Crystal, one of the tweets that J.D. Vance put out after that assassination attempt at the weekend on President Trump was pointing the finger of blame at the Democrats and was quite divisive language. Do you think that that's kind of the language and the rhetoric we're going to hear and see from him going forward?
I don't think so. I didn't see that tweet that you're referring to. The tweet that I saw was the one where he was sending his prayers for a healthy recovery, and the various tweets he's sent mourning the death of a great American hero who was caught in the crossfire. So I didn't see the tweet that you're referring to. I know that there are a lot of folks who do get angry, justifiably so, when our politicians use language that seems to call for violence. And this was certainly a tragic consequence of that violent sort of language. I think that he is going to be on stage tonight, and he is going to give a great unifying speech. I hope that folks who don't plan to vote for Donald Trump, who don't plan to vote for the Trump-Vance ticket, I hope they watch his speech tonight. I think that a lot of people are going to have their minds opened and are going to have the opportunity to judge for themselves who he is, what his character is, what kind of vice president he'll make. And I think they'll be vastly reassured.
Crystal McKellar, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live from the Republican National Convention. There's still lots more to come on the program, including the renowned pollster Frank Luntz, who joins me here to discuss the state of the race for the White House. Stay with us. And that, as another senior Democrat comes out to call for Joe Biden to stand aside, will the president listen?
Now, an England fan who got a tattoo to commemorate England winning the men's Euros says he won't get it covered up despite the fact England did not win the men's Euros. Dan Thomas got the tattoo on his leg days before Sunday's final, but he insists he has no regrets. In fact, he's confident England could go on better at the next Euros and he can just change the 4 to an 8. Let's have a chat with Dan now. Dan, what went through your mind before getting the tattoo? Were you just supremely confident that they were going to do it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had all belief in Gareth Southgate and team, and I definitely thought they were going to do it.
And how do you feel now?
A little bit disappointed. Yeah, I think they've done really well to get to the final, but definitely disappointed. I thought they were going to win. Obviously not. But hopefully for another 4 years we can sort that tattoo out.
Have you been looking at the tattoo thinking, why did I do this?
Yeah, I actually went back into the tattoo studio today because they wanted to have a look at it. So yeah, a couple of my friends had texted me and said, "Can you come in and have a look, and we can have a look at it again." But yeah, there's a little bit of why did I do it, but there's definitely no regrets.
I mean, you can't have regrets, right? I mean, you kind of stuck with it now. When you went back in, did they give you an idea of how you might be able to rectify proceedings? I mean, look, you either change the tattoo or England go on to win something, and I think changing the tattoo is probably the easier option.
Well, I think they could still win it in 4 years' time. Yeah, good friend in there who works in the studio. Liam Jeter. He said to me, I think we could maybe cover it up with something, and I said, I'm not 100% sure. I think I'd rather just leave it and change the 4 to an 8. So I'm still confident for next time, especially now we're seeing a new manager come in.
Hello and welcome back to the Republican National Convention live here in Milwaukee. I'm Yalda Hakim. Well, we have been part of all the pageantry here, the political theatre, all the TV drama of the last few days. And this is day 3 of this convention. Lots of headline acts tonight, but we're going to shift our attention for a moment on the Democratic Party. Of course, they're expecting their convention to be in August, but that dark cloud still hangs over them. What to do with a problem like Joe Biden, given what happened during the debates of a few weeks ago and the chatter around his future as their nominee. And now another senior Democratic leader has come out and asked for him to step down. Well, let's get the very latest from Washington and speak to our David Blevins. And David, I mean, the mood music is moving in one direction when it comes to Joe Biden, but it very much feels like he's still clinging on.
That's right, and this event is significant in that Adam Schiff is now the most prominent Democrat to call on Joe Biden to step aside. He is, of course, a representative from California, so he's also a very close ally of the former Speaker and highly prominent Democrat Nancy Pelosi. In fact, some here on Capitol Hill are describing this as Nancy using her drone, hovering over events related to Joe Biden. Now, in a statement, Adam Schiff said, "Our nation is at a crossroads. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our democracy, and I have serious concerns about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump in November. While the choice to withdraw from the campaign is President Biden's alone, I believe it is time for him to pass the torch." Well, will the president listen? He doesn't sound like a man who's going anywhere. Last night he put in the best performance he has for some time in Nevada. He quoted Harry Truman, that if you want to have a friend in Washington, get a job, but then was very coherent and articulate and energized. A Joe Biden we've not seen for a very long time. He didn't sound like a man who is preparing to leave this race. But how does he compete with a blood-stained Donald Trump raising his fist in defiance just moments after an attempted assassination? That's the question that's now being asked by many Democrats.
Thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Let's just show you some live pictures now of Joe Biden, who is continuing on the campaign trail in Las Vegas. He's at a restaurant there. Yesterday, he was speaking at a special event at the NAACP, and today he is meeting with Latino voters as well in Las Vegas. So he continues on the campaign trail as more and more Democrats come out and call for him to step aside. And it's unclear where Joe Biden is placed at the moment, but he continues to campaign and ignore the noise around him. Well, if Joe Biden stays in the race, the presidency will be won and lost in a handful of states. We're here, as we've said, in Milwaukee in Wisconsin, a crucial battleground, neither clearly Democrat or Republican, but a purple swing state, and experts predict it's one of a handful. The others, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, are all set to be on a knife's edge. Let's just bring in legendary pollster and strategist Frank Luntz, who worked for Republican candidates in past elections. Frank, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We're going to speak about these swing states in a moment, but before we finished up there with David Blevins, you talked about the importance of Adam Schiff coming out and saying this. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
He's a significant Democrat. He's the Democratic nominee for the Senate, mainstream. People know who he is nationwide, and it's going to have an impact because people listen to him. He has credibility. And most of the Democrats who've been challenging Biden are not particularly well known. Schiff is very well known, and this is going to be a problem for President Biden.
But it doesn't seem like anything's shifting at this point.
No, because everyone's focused on this Republican convention. And after 2 days, they're waiting for the vice presidential nominee's speech tonight, Trump's speech tomorrow night, and on Friday, it's back to the way things used to be. Watch. This is going to have an impact over the weekend, and all Democrats and Republicans are returning to Washington on Monday. And you put them all in one place at one time, and there's trouble.
The purpose of these conventions is exactly what we're seeing. You know, this sense that they are going to win. When I speak to the delegates, though, it is something they truly believe. They feel like the momentum has somehow shifted, certainly after what happened at the weekend.
And they're correct. I don't believe it's changing a single vote. The debates did not change a vote. Biden's interview did not change a vote. His assassination attempt did not change a vote. But it made it, by the way, this is very cool. I want viewers to know that to be able to think and listen to that at the same time, you are very impressive.
Thank you.
The intensity, the passion is so strong right now. People really do care here. That's worth between 1% and 2%. That's all it takes to win this election is another % or 2. Right now, Donald Trump is 6% ahead of where he was with Joe Biden and almost 10% of where he was versus Hillary Clinton. He's heading towards a victory if things continue this way.
Do you think that it's clever to go with this conventional wisdom that he's just going to win? Because in 2016, there was no way he was going to win. In 2024, there is no way he's going to lose. I mean, there are so many plot twists at the moment. This could go any which way.
Well,
do you agree?
Remember, I'm a pollster. I do focus groups every single week. I do polls almost every week. I'm listening to the Americans, and there are issues about Trump they don't like. His meanness, Sometimes he's rude, sometimes he's overbearing. But they agree with him on the issues. Joe Biden, they respect as a person, but they think his presidency was a failure. Donald Trump right now, 55% of Americans think he was successful as a president. Only 39% hold that for Joe Biden. If those numbers hold, Biden cannot win.
And it could come down to a few thousand like it did in 2020, where here in Wisconsin, Donald Trump lost by about 20,000 votes.
But you gave a list of the swing states. Most of those are not swing states right now. Most of those have moved into Trump's camp. There are only 3, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and right here in Wisconsin. Trump is moving ahead in all 3 of them, and that's significant. That's why you had the head of the Teamsters addressing this convention, more African-American women addressing the convention, more working-class people addressing this convention. I've never seen something that looked like America, and I've been going to conventions since 1988. It looks like America up on that stage.
The diversity that we're
yes,
seeing.
and I'm watching it, and I'm not even paying attention necessarily to what they say. I'm looking at how they look. I'm thinking, oh my God, they got it. They figured it out. Now, Biden's going to get his chance in August in Chicago, and he'll bring some people back. But the intensity and the passion, every Trump voter can't wait to vote multiple times if you live in Chicago. But they're really engaged right now, and the Biden people are really disappointed. In a sentence, Trump voters are energized, and Biden voters are demoralized.
What can shift that for the Democrats now?
2 things. Number 1 is for Biden to focus on the future, not the past. If you listen to what he's been saying, he's been trying to run on the things he's done. Nobody cares. They want to know what he's going to do, and they're nervous because of his age. Either focus on that or have an alternative candidate that instills new blood and new intensity. I respect Joe Biden, the man, very much, and I know him a little bit. But the public is saying, thank you for your service. It's time to move on.
Indeed, and we'll have to see how this all plays out over the weekend and the coming days. Frank, thank you so much for being here with us.
You are amazing that you can do this with all that in the background. She's really, really good.
Thank you. An endorsement on air. Thank you. Thank you so much, Frank. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much. That's pollster there, Frank Lutz, giving us a sense of what those 3 key swing states are and what to look out for in the upcoming election, and frankly, over the next few months as well. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live from the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. Lots more coming up in the next few minutes. New details emerge about the gunman who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Welcome back to the Republican National Convention, live here in Milwaukee with me, Yalda Hakim. Well, some of the rehearsals are wrapping up just behind me on day 3 of this convention. And as we've said, the headline acts are J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee. We're expecting to see him a little later. And it's clear what the people here, the thousands of delegates and officials who are here, what they think and which direction they will be voting in. But what about those outside these 4 walls? Well, my colleague James Matthews has been out and about in Milwaukee and the suburbs on the outskirts of Milwaukee to find out. Have a look.
We came to a place called WOW. It's the acronym for the counties of Washington, Ozaukee and Waukesha. The corner of Wisconsin that gave us the Les Paul Gibson guitar picked Trump at the last election. But Biden won the state overall by just 20,000 votes. How are you going to vote in November?
Trump.
Why?
Because he makes the right decisions.
Do we have any reason to vote for Trump? I mean, he's a convicted felon.
I don't love either of them, if I'm being honest.
Rob Shewitt has owned his family farm in Waukesha for 50 years.
Come on, guys.
In Wisconsin, rural areas lean Republican. In the must-win state, support for Trump is strongest here.
Well, the inflation, I mean, that hits everybody. That's probably number one. You can spend $300,000 or $400,000 on a tractor and $1 million on a new combine. And to justify that, you'd need 10,000 acres of crop.
The private jets are parked at Waukesha Airport while the Republican National Convention continues half an hour down Highway 43. Trump is shaping up for victory in swing states where the election will be decided. Opinion polls had him ahead before the assassination attempt.
I think it humanizes him. He got up. It showed how strong he was. He kept fighting.
A good man versus a not so good man. And I'll let
Which is which?
I'm going to vote for Biden.
One of the key questions in this swing state and in others is how many swing voters can be left? How many can be undecided between 2 candidates, both of whom have been in office and presented clear cases for comparison and contrast? They're preparing the annual fair in Waukesha and testing the swing. What else?
I know where my moral compass is located, and there's one candidate that clearly aims one direction and one aims the other direction.
So which do you favor?
Biden.
There have been spectacular storms in the skies of these suburbs, not just in their politics. Come November, the election here could be decided less by a swing vote than by getting the vote out. The political wow factor in this place called WOW. James Matthews, Sky News in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Well, some of the voices there in Wisconsin, this state that's considered a swing state. Well, the focus here at the convention is the future and, of course, the election in November. But it is happening with the backdrop of the assassination attempt at the weekend. And the FBI is continuing its investigation into that assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Now, in the past few hours, our colleagues at NBC News have received new information about the shooter's methods and how much Secret Service knew. A senior law enforcement official has told NBC that a transmitter found next to Thomas Crook's body had been identified as firework detonator. Authorities found 2 suspected improvised explosive devices in the suspect's car. NBC News also understands that the Secret Service were aware of reports about a suspicious person with a rangefinder when Donald Trump walked on stage. Well, in many ways, it feels like this Republican National Convention that has been planned for months has taken a new sort of meaning for the people here. Yesterday, when I spoke to some of the delegates, they said that assassin wanted us to mark the funeral of Donald Trump today, but we're actually doing the opposite. We are focused on winning the election in November. So how much has it reinvigorated this campaign? Let's bring in Sky News' US election commentator Michael Wolff. And Michael, you've been in all of these circles for a very long time. Just tell us how much the assassination attempt at the weekend has actually impacted the mood here.
Well, I can step back a second and say that the week before the assassination and 2 weeks before the assassination, Donald Trump was kind of glum about the convention. It wasn't compared to the drama going on among the Democrats, who was going to be interested in the Republican convention. And he kept saying, I'm not interested in the convention. It's not, let's just get it over with. And rightly so, where Donald Trump has been dominated almost every aspect of this campaign for the past 18 months, suddenly it became a Democratic show. Now, it might have been a really weird Democratic show, but that didn't matter. They took all of the news. In Donald Trump's frame of reference, news and media are a zero-sum game. The other guy gets it, you don't. And so he was thinking, this convention is, and it was a completely awkward and novel position for Donald Trump, for the spotlight not to be on him. And then, of course, all of a sudden, Saturday night, everything changed, literally everything. He became not only the center of the news, but hero, martyr, producing a picture, a literal picture, iconic picture, which will go down in American history. Blood, flag, Donald Trump.
I mean, in many ways, he's a sort of political phenomenon that he can think to do that in that moment. It's quite extraordinary.
No, what incredible instincts. It seems sacrilegious, given the fact that he was almost killed, to call it a showman's instinct. But damn,
I mean, that's
it
what
was
it felt like
a
it
showman's
was.
instinct, of course. Extraordinary. And among the other effects is that this not only pushes the Democratic drama out of the news, but gives a respite to Joe Biden. The media, that steady media calls for his resignation, gone off the front page. And there is nothing Donald Trump wants so much as for Joe Biden to stay in the race and for him to be running against the weakest possible opposition figure.
Michael, for the last 8 years, the Donald Trump that Donald Trump has wanted the world to see is this strong man, someone who's in charge. Do you think that this assassination attempt has almost changed his mindset? I mean, he came out with a bandaged ear. He looked at times quite emotional listening to the speeches.
Yeah, I actually thought he looked fragile. For the first time, under the tan and the hair dye, I saw the outlines of an old man. But having said that, Donald Trump stays on the Donald Trump script. Nothing changes. And he was supposed to come to this convention, scheduled to come in on Sunday night. Now that never happens. Usually a candidate who has the nomination wrapped up waits until the last day and wants to appear above politics. Donald Trump intended to come in on Sunday night. Then after the shooting, he actually said was shaken, and he wanted to take a day or take 2 days. But on second thought, he decided, no, let's go in. This is my moment. We're not gonna waste it.
I mean, as you say, ever the showman. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here.
Anytime.
Thank you. Well, we've been speaking a lot about what the headline acts will be. Of course, J.D. Vance will be a star attraction, and ahead of that speech, we've also been getting a sense of what people think of J.D. Vance and seen Republican heavy stage. And last night, there was also one unlikely star. Have a look.
Please welcome West Virginia Governor and the next senator from West Virginia, Jim Justice. And Baby Dog.
She makes us smile, and she loves everybody. And how could the message possibly be any more simpler than just that? Baby Dog's got a prediction for everybody here. We'll retain the House, the majority in the House. We're going to flip the United States Senate, and overwhelmingly, we're going to elect Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance in November.
That was Baby Dog, who's become a bit of a mascot for the Republican Party and certainly seemed to overshadow his own owner, the governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice. Well, let's go straight to our James Matthews, who has been spending the last few days speaking with voters. James, it's so loud in here, but over to you for now.
Yeah, hi, Yalda. I'm outside the building where you are. Take a look at the concourse here in the center of cordoned off Wisconsin, but the Republican Party and delegates are very much allowed in. You see the media interest, TV from around the world, fascinated by American politics and an inflection point in politics. We're surrounded by Trump loyalists. We're joined by one, our friends from the New York Post are very kindly going to let us step in. Hello there, what's your name?
I am Susan Renault from Missoula, Montana.
Hi, Susan. Let me ask you this. Where do you feel, you're obviously a Trump fan. What changed, if anything, on Saturday when there was the assassination attempt?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, I've been a fan of his since he and Melania went down the escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. So I appreciate his courage. I appreciate him.
Let's take a look at the badges on your hat. Well, I ask you this question.
Okay.
Tell me.
Why are you so glitzy? That's what you want to ask.
Well, that is a question, but let me try you this one. But what changed in terms of his electability, do you think?
I think he was electable before the shots rang out. I think we may be looking at a runaway election. I am hearing from Democrats and independents, and most importantly independents, that no, our country is in grave danger.
Okay, Susan, thanks for your time. Very quickly, let's just take a look at the queue. They are queuing to get into the arena, normally home to the Milwaukee Bucks basketball team. Not today. This is the crowd for the Make America Strong Once Again session. In that crowd somewhere is David, with whom we're going to have a chat. Hello, David. Hi. How are you doing? Tell me, what's in your mind right now politically, and what changed, if anything, when there was an attempted assassination on a leader of your party?
First of all, I was flabbergasted. I just couldn't imagine someone taking a pop shot at President Trump. And the only thing I can say is the hand of God protected him. Now, that being said, I just couldn't imagine having to be here today and to pick someone else, even though our bench is full of potential candidates for the President of the United States. You know, we could have done that, but I'm glad it didn't happen that way.
Okay, all right, David. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the week. So there you go, Yalda. A party clearly with its tails up.
James, thank you so much for all of that from outside the convention center. Well, here in the convention center, preparations are underway for the beginning of the day 3 of the RNC. And like we said, we're expecting to see J.D. Vance take the stage and introduce himself to America, introduce himself to the convention, because they've continued to hear his name, but do they really know who this 39-year-old senator, who is now can't even call him a rising star of the Republican Party. He's now going to be the number 2 if Donald Trump does get elected. Well, that's it from me and the team here in Milwaukee. The news at 10 is next, and we'll be there with all the latest updates. We'll also be back at 9 p.m. tomorrow. Good night for now.